Joseph, what are you doing?
I am becoming one with the flip.
You've been laid down there for 5 hours.
Behold, the fruits of my labor. Was that cool?
Yeah.
Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka MBT, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. While I've gained notoriety as one of the only duelists practiced enough in Pacifist to make it look playable, my first fascination has always been with flip monsters. In my never-ending quest to dominate the face-down position, phrasing, I've sided with Subterror, congregated with Crawlers, and now that enough support has been released to make them playable, I intend to showcase SHADDOLL Tindangles. So here's the list, and don't stare directly into your computer screen. It might not be good for your drelth. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, Tindangle is one of those archetypes from Vrains. Played by a character whose previous single on-screen duel was a debilitating loss to Playmaker, in which he summoned a grand total of 2 monsters, it didn't seem likely that these Lovecraftian lads were going to make much of an impact, despite their unique appearance and reasonably interesting playstyle. Thankfully, we're now 3 seasons into Vrains, and it has completely jumped the shark. This is bad news for people subjecting themselves to the anime, but great news for people interested in the archetypes of the characters, which now have to be impossibly strong to compete with Ai's mega-pushed Playmakers. Tindangle's ability to compete has manifested in an unreleased spell that I'm sure we're never going to get, an incredible monster Playmaker in Tindangle Delaunay, and a payoff in Tindangle Delaunay, a tribal soul charge on a trap. Unfortunately, there's one singular problem with these tetrahexagonal tools. Their tribal boss is middling, to say the least. While they're more than capable of spamming the board, special summoning 4 monsters just to pump into a single boar load often isn't good enough in a world ruined by removal spells. Instead, I advocate making use of an often overlooked member of the SHADDOLL tribe, SHADDOLL Construct. No, I'm not talking about that SHADDOLL Construct. Their associated Link monster isn't excessively xenophobic, her only requirement is to flip monsters. By dumping our resources into this dark doll, we're able to repeatedly summon SHADDOLL Construct, provided we use our Drelths liberally or draw a light monster, barf out windows at wondrous speed, and build boards by recurring Construct to use her arrows elsewhere. If everything goes as planned, we'll be able to spend our turn 1s engineering an impenetrable wall of monsters in defense position, and our turn 2s converting that advantage into removal, floodgates, and OTK tools. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, the Tindangulum Intangulums, 3 Drelth who can be special summoned from the hand by discarding a card, then sends a Tindangle card to the graveyard. In theory, you're meant to discard either Intruder or Delaney, then send the other so Intruder reborns itself. He's also got a flip effect that adds or sends to the graveyard a flip monster from your deck. We're usually using that to bin a 3rd Tindangle for Delaunay, or add a SHADDOLL for Construct. Next is Trinity, which we're playing at 2 because she's a name and specials base Gardna from our deck, but truth be told is miserable to draw. After that is our Garnet base Gardna, our usual foolish target, Intruder, and our superfluous name, Angel. For dolls, we're on Beast, Dragon, and Hedgehog, followed by 3 Spirit of the Fall Wind, which is basically Stratos in this deck. Finally, we've got our hand traps, 3 Ash, 3 Ghost Ogre, and 3 Veiler, mostly lights for L Construct. For spells, we're on 3 Fusion, 2 Foolish Burial Goods for Nagel's Protection and Delaney, 1 Foolish Burial, 3 Called by the Grave, 3 Nagel's Protection, which prevents your Tindangles from being destroyed by battle or card effects, 2 Succession, which I'm not entirely sold on, but does search Drelth, finally 3 Delaney, which does everything. It's got a trap effect that's awful, but we're playing it because if your extra monster zone is empty, you can banish it from the graveyard to special 3 different Tindangles from the graveyard, which also triggers Intruder. It's just Soul Charge. In the extra, we've got 4 dolls, L Construct, Wendigo for Spirit, and 2 Winda, followed by Borreload, Boral Guard, its flip support, and Boral Sword. We've got 2 Acute Cerberus, Nightmares Unicorn, Phoenix, and Cerberus, Subterra Behemoth Fiendus, and 2 SHADDOLL Construct. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Predaplants. Now, I've heard rumblings that this deck has become incredibly good in the wake of new support, but I'll believe it when I see it. Our hand is amazing. We not only have a copy of Tindangle Delaunay, we have a Tindangle Delaunay, a couple of hand traps, and a Foolish Burial Goods. Let's see how far we can go. We're going to lead with a copy of Tindangle Delaunay, discarding this copy of Delaunay to send a copy of Intruder to graveyard, who will then special summon himself. God, I love these hand-holding combos. Afterwards, we're going to activate Foolish Burial Goods to send a Nagel's Protection to graveyard and pass it back. Our opponent will lead with a copy of Lonefire Blossom, then activate Orpheus Scorpio's effect. Will effect failure, but look at that, the Garnet in the graveyard. That's big MBT energy. Afterwards, we're going to go into a Chimera Aphlesia. We'll activate the effect of Intruder and the effect of Drought to send a copy of Angel to graveyard, so that we have the requisite material in the graveyard to activate Delaunay's graveyard effect. We'll bring back our entire graveyard, and then plus some more in our main phase. For turn, we draw a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. That's a secret tool that will help us later. We'll get a Delaunay to hand off of Intruder's effect, so we can discard it for Nagel's Protection. Afterwards, we're going to activate Jarell's effect to get a copy of SHADDOLL Hedgehog to hand, special summon the Trinity from our hand with Angel's effect before going into Construct. We'll go into SHADDOLL Construct and activate both her effect and Hedgehog's. We're going to get a Beast to hand, and then we'll activate SHADDOLL Construct's Grave effect to draw a card off of Beast and go to battle phase. We'll clear our opponent's board with SHADDOLL Construct's effect and get in for a fair amount of damage. Things are looking very bad for our opponent, except they have an I win button in their hand. We'll ash their Chimera Aphlesia. They'll activate Called by the Grave, which seems weird because they're just going to discard the card they get to Super Polymerization. Well, all we have to beat here is a Dragus Tapelia. They're going to attack into our Construct, but of course at end phase we can activate Delaunay to bring back every single card in our graveyard once again. Soul Charge 3 times in one duel is kind of hard to beat. For turn, we draw a copy of Effect Veiler, and this should be it. We'll flip up Intruder to get a copy of Delaunay number 3. We'll then activate the Grave effect of SHADDOLL Construct. They will chain the effect of Dragus Tapelia, which allows us to Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. We'll then activate the effect of Drelth, link summon this copy of Subterror Behemoth Fiendus, activate her effect as Trinity is flipped up at a point she points to get a copy of Dragon to hand. We'll then special summon a copy of Winda, special summon a copy of Acute Cerberus, and get in for way over lethal. Our second match is up against Abyss Actor, and this isn't some namby-pamby Electromite deck. This is about activating scripts early and often. I'm kidding, of course. They are playing scripts, but they're definitely also on Electromite. We're going second, which is less than ideal, but our hand is pretty good. Let's see if it can power through our opponent's turn 1 setup. They're going to set Mellow Madonna and use her effect to get a copy of Extras. Extras is insane, for those of you that don't know, and it allows them to scale Wild Hope before Pendulum Summoning 2, setting 2, and passing it back to us. Okay, well the first thing we're going to do is activate Jarell's effect. After we've done that, we're going to activate Intruder's effect and activate Nagel's Protection. Our opponent's going to Ash Blossom, but I really want Nagel's Protection out, especially against the deck that just summons a bunch of big dumb dinguses. We're then going to activate the effect of Spirit of the Fallwind before sending a copy of Delaunay with his Foolish Burial Goods, attacking one of our opponent's monsters and passing it back. They draw a copy of, what is that, Abyss-tainment, before adding a copy of Superstar to hand and pendulum summoning him and Twinkle Little Star. They'll use Superstar's effect to get a copy of Rise of the Abyss King. They'll use it to destroy, well, everything they can, basically. We'll activate Intruder's effect and then activate Jarell's effect as well, sending a Trinity to graveyard, which unfortunately for our opponent is enough fodder to activate Delaunay at end step. They're going to pop their own Wild Hope for a copy of Curtain Raiser. They'll activate Curtain Raiser's effect. Curtain Raiser has an effect. They'll use Abyss-tainment to reset this copy of Abyss King, and then at end step we're going to not bring back 3 monsters, but 4 because we have 3 uniques plus Intruder. Afterwards, we're going to draw a copy of, Effect Veiler. That'll come in handy. We'll flip up this copy of Intruder for a second copy of Delaunay, which we will send to the graveyard for Nagel's Protection. We'll then flip up this copy of Jarell to send a copy of Hedgehog to graveyard so we can get ourselves a copy of Dragon. We'll flip up all of our monsters before going into Fiendus and eating a Solemn Strike. After that's over, we're going to link summon a copy of SHADDOLL Construct and go into SHADDOLL Construct. We'll send a copy of Beast to draw a card. Afterwards, we'll activate SHADDOLL Construct's Grave effect to send a Dragon to graveyard and pop our opponent's Mellow Madonna. Always important to get the monkey board off the field. We can't destroy this copy of Superstar, but we can destroy everything else. Our opponent draws a Solemn Warning. They'll activate Extra's effect. They're going to set a copy of Mellow Madonna once again, but I figure as long as we can survive this turn, we probably win, so it's worth an ash. Our opponent's going to activate Rise of the Abyss King twice. Thankfully, it only destroys 1 monster each time. Our monster is protected, but we do take 2,500 points of damage. That's not a big deal, of course, because we'll be bringing back 3 monsters plus Intruder in the end phase anyway. From here, it's an easy path to victory. We're going to draw a copy of Foolish Burial Goods. We'll flip up a copy of Jarell, adding a copy of Trinity to hand. We'll activate Foolish Burial Goods, flip up a copy of Trinity before going into Acute Cerberus and eating a Solemn Warning. From here, we'll go into the Chad Cerberus, first activating Delaunay to rub it in our opponent's face that we get to do so, before link summoning a copy of Nightmare Cerberus, destroying our opponent's remaining monster and getting in for lethal. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent is playing Sky Striker, though you wouldn't know it based on that opener. Our hand is really good, provided our Spirit of the Fallwind resolves, but I see no reason to believe that that wouldn't be the case. We're going to lead by normal summoning a copy of Spirit of the Fallwind and activating the effect, which will eat an effect Veiler. Okay, well, based on this hand, I think our best course of action is to try again next turn. Our opponent draws a multi-roll, so maybe we will actually get the opportunity. We'll activate Spirit of the Fallwind again. It eats a Widow Anchor. Fool. You stood no chance against a single Spirit of the Fallwind. How can you possibly defeat two? Kind of kicking myself for not including a rank 4 in the extra deck right now. I figure as long as that's not a hand trap with a big butt, I win now, but unfortunately I have no out to a set Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Our opponent regrettably has drawn Reinforcement of the Army and will get to play this game. They'll go into Hayate, attack directly for 1500, set a copy of Engaged to Graveyard, then go into Kagari. We can activate Effect Veiler, but they can link summon Shizuku afterwards. We have exactly one turn to win the game. Let's hope we can get it done. For turn, we draw a copy of Jarelth. We're going to flip up this copy of Trinity, activate her effect, which eats a Veiler. I figure shields are down, fire off the Shaddol Fusion, but they have an Ash Blossom as well. Yikes. We'll activate Jarelth's effect, which allows us to special summon a copy of Intruder from Graveyard, but there's no good attacks, so we do have to pass it back. Our opponent draws a copy of Shark Cannon. They'll activate Multi-Roll and Area 0. Please whiff. Just fine. They find a Shark Cannon, then they're going to activate Jamming Waves on their own Shark Cannon before going into a copy of Hayate. While our Trinity can't be destroyed by battle, we can take damage. They'll go into Shizuku, set a card, and activate Multi-Roll for 2. They'll add an Engage to hand. Okay, we really have to win now, or we lose. We'll activate Intruder's effect to get a copy of Jarelth to hand. We'll go into Construct, El Shaddol Construct, activate the effect of Shaddol Hedgehog. We'll add a copy of Beast to hand, and send a copy of Dragon to destroy this copy of Multi-Roll. Afterwards, going to use Construct's Grave effect to draw a card. We'll then link summon a copy of Nightmare Phoenix, but that prompts a copy of Widow Anchor from our opponent. They're going to activate Shark Cannon on our Intruder as well, but at the very least, this is all their spells and traps gone. Maybe we can do this. They activate a copy of Engage to find a copy of Hercules Base, and suddenly I realize the game is actually completely over. They're going to draw 2 cards off of these Hercules Base effects, and then they'll activate Area 0 with, thankfully, but draw an MST off of the Engage to pop the Hercules Base and return Kagari. I see no reason to continue from this point on. So it's time for game 2, and yikes, this is the first really bad hand we've had so far. No access to Jarelth, no access to Delaunay setups. I would kill for a Spirit of the Fallwind. I think the best we can do is T-set and hope that Subterror Succession isn't so slow that we're dead by our standby phase. Unfortunately for us, our opponent does have access to their own linear game plan. We're not going to be afforded the time we were last game. We're going to start by doing our best. Our opponent's going to activate Terraforming to get a copy of Area 0. They'll then activate Engage for a copy of Multi-Roll. They'll set them both and then activate Area 0's effect on their set card, finding off the top. Nothing. Okay, that's pretty good. They'll then activate Multi-Roll on Area 0. I think it's possible they don't have access to Ray, and my suspicions are confirmed when they pass it back. We have one turn to do this. We're going to activate Subterror Succession. They'll activate Ash. We'll activate Called by the Grave because I really need Dragon to resolve here. We're going to activate both Dragon's effect and Subterror Successions, adding a Jarelth to hand, whose effect we will then activate, sending a Delaunay to Graveyard. The theory here is they'll have to attack into Jarelth eventually, which will turn on Delaunay. Unfortunately, I'm proven extremely wrong almost immediately when they activate Engage for Jamming Waves. This way they're able to destroy Jarelth and attack directly with Hayate. From here, I don't think I can win. In main phase 2, they're going to go into a Shizuku, activate Metal Foe's Fusion effect, then activate Shizuku for a copy of the card that haunts my nightmares. We'll activate Angel's effect. They will activate Widow Anchor and we'll tribute it for Beast. Take that, Garnets. They'll go into Kagari, getting back the Jamming Waves, destroying their own card in order to destroy Beast, and I think that's probably all we need to see. So we're back with the deck, and God, those were so grindy they'd be banned from middle school prom. Let's do the pros and the cons. First, the pros. 1, the deck is competent. And that is a remarkable improvement from any other time in Tindangle's history. It has a clear linear setup which transitions into flexible and powerful mid-game plays. 2, Shaddol Construct feels extremely at home in this list. It turns Delaunay follow-ups into advantage without tunneling onto an easily removed Boral Dragon. And 3, the game plan is intensely adaptable. Against decks like Sky Striker that need to be able to special summon several times on your opponent's turn, you can make Windas pre-combat. Against decks that funnel resources into big bosses, you make a beeline for L Construct. And against decks that lack spell and trap removal, you can cower behind Nagel like the baby you are. And the cons. 1, the deck, loses to most floodgates. It sucks to play Rogue and get hosed to the same TCBOO you'd lose to on Thunder. 2, the game states are really hard to evaluate. You're constantly having to weigh your options and the efficacy of going into Link bosses over just continuing to set monsters and hope for the best. This means a prerequisite of playing is understanding of what your opponent will do and if you'll outscale. It's kind of like playing Salamangreat if Salamangreat had no way to win the game. And 3, you are just not going to get away with a hand where you don't resolve Jareth. He's pretty open or die, and you do often open hands that don't include him. All in all, it's a deck that operates on a different axis than anything I've ever played, including other flip archetypes. If you're looking for a home for Shaddol Construct and don't fear the arcane knowledge of shapes, I cannot recommend this more. So that's that. While I appreciate all of my viewers, a special thanks to my patrons, especially Michael Salmior, Distrin, Lucas Geerdes, Adam Trevino, Second, Lieutenant Labcoat, Meepmoto27, Adrian Bra, Adam Sunquist, Isaac Jackson, and Donnie Fillerup. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/NBTYGO every Monday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.